Hey, it's Random Code here, and today I want to showcase how we can create JavaFX custom components. And the concept of a custom component is simply that we create some functionality, in my case, inside an FXML with a connected controller, more or less. It's not a controller, but think of it as a controller. And we can then reuse this functionality, this component, in other FXMLs. And for now, in this version, it's just very simple. We can just do it within the same project. But in my next video, I'm going to showcase how we can export this library in a jar, and then we can actually use it in multiple projects and, for example, inside Scene Builder. But for now, I have just created a very simple custom component, which is this blue button. I'm calling it a flipper. And when we click this flipper button, it flips between the color of blue and red. So it's kind of like a color switch button with a transition. And then how this works is that we have our hello view, which is kind of like our main project. Our hello view, as we just saw, then contains the basic JavaFX setup, hello button, and some hello text. And we then also have our flipper component. How we can do this is that we first of all have a flipper FXML, which is a relatively simple setup. And notice, compared to here where we have like a VBox being the outer parent, for our flipper, our outer parent is a root, FX root, with a type. So it's of type VBox, but it is a FX root. It then has some XMLs, some standard JavaFX setup, and within inside this version, we just have a rectangle with some defining features of like the fill, the height, the stroke width, and the width, so the size and everything. And for now, this is not very custom, it's very hard coded, which is not like how I would do it if I was actually building a library. But this will show you how it works. So we have this rectangle, you can show in Scene Builder. We have this VBox with a rectangle. So we could also use Scene Build to create components. And for now in this setup, because we are creating these custom components, not really sharing them outwards, outside the project, our hello view is actually going to be complaining if we open this in Scene Builder. But otherwise, we have our flipper with a simple rectangle, and our rectangle then has an ID. We then inside a flipper class, extending the VBox functionality. So very much the general thought of how a library works is that we're building upon the base functionality in JavaFX. So our flipper component is going to be built upon the VBox functionality, then containing a rectangle in this case. So we have our rectangle flipper. And we then have a simple constructor. Inside the constructor, we're then connecting our flipper custom component here to our flipper FXML. We could also, I think that's how actually most of the JavaFX libraries work, is that they would just here manually do all the JavaFX, or the FXML setup. So they do not use FXMLs, they just here create a rectangle manually. But for now, this is a very simple example, but I like using the FXMLs. So we have FXML loader, we load, creates a connection to our FXML, it's inside our resource folder. We set the root to here, controller to here. So this is kind of like controller for this flipper component, custom component, which allow us to do like a setup elements method inside our constructor. So if we have connected to our FXML, if everything loads as expected, so we have a try catch, we then set up our elements, and when setting up our elements, we simply add an on mouse click property to our flipper, which is our rectangle. And we can then on click simply call the switch state method, which just very simply have a fill transition. So the transition between two colors. And then depending on a local variable state, we either flip from blue to red or red to blue. So if state is true, we switch one way. If it's false, the other way. And then we set the state. And then for our fill transition, we then set a cycle count to 1. So just change from one color to another. Don't go back and forward. Auto reverse true. I'm actually not sure if this is even needed, auto reverse. It should not be needed in our case. It just simply mean that when our cycle count is set, yeah, it's not needed. So let's not use that. But if we wanted that, it would be if we could have like a crazy setup. I don't know if it's very useful, but cycle count of 2, so it's going like doing it multiple times and how it's reversing. So now a single click would go from blue to red to blue. And it would auto reverse and not just start over, but Doesn't really make sense when we're just doing one cycle. But that's very much the setup. We have some kind of FXML. We then connect to our FXML. We can then extract our rectangle from our FXML. And we can then do some kind of setup here in code, allowing for the functionality of this component. This component can then be reused inside our Hello view. But if you enjoyed this quick showcase of how to create custom components in JavaFX, please leave a like and subscribe, and I wish you all a wonderful day.